In this video, we're going to take a look at a black ink by Pilot, their Mixable Black. Now, as always, there's timestamps down below so you can skip around, but if you've got the time, I'd appreciate you checking out the entire video. Also, down in the description is a link to the black ink playlist, so if you wanted to see more, you could find that there. I'm an ink guy, and let's get into the first writing sample done on 90 GSM Clairfontaine. No bleeding, no ghosting. We have no feather, spread, halo, sheen, or shade. Now, the extra fine appears a little bit lighter than the stub or the medium. The extra fine took 16 seconds to dry and the medium took 20. Scrubby for both gave us no color variation, and there isn't nice solid black. And the smear test, I don't think you could recover if you smeared while you were writing. To have a range of experience with this ink, all of the writing samples are done with a Jinhao 159 with a 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a medium, and a Jinhao X750 with an extra fine. Then a Duke 209 with a Fude nib was inked up, used for a day, and used to take the notes for this video. The next writing sample was done on 52 GSM Tomoe River. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. We don't even really, well, I mean, the extra fine is a little bit lighter. I'm not sure that I get a little hung up sometimes on the idea of, is it lighter or is it appear lighter for being thinner, but it is just a little bit lighter. The extra fine took 20 seconds to dry while the medium took 28. Scrubby for both gave us no color variation because there is none in the writing, and a smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. I agree with Vita. There's a lot to learn by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. A line of ink is put down, and then it's put into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And I was actually surprised because on the bottom you do see a little bit of a line forming, and it looks greenish pushing up. So it's a green-based black, which I was really surprised when you talk about mixing inks having anything other than a pure black for it. Now, the one on the right was let dry for 10 minutes, and it looks fairly even in its spread moving up. This means that it's bonding while it's moving and does have the potential of being a bit resistant. The next writing sample is done on 80 GSM Rhodia dot pad. We have no bleeding, but we do have a fair amount of ghosting. Interesting. No feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. No tone variation. Beautiful performance here. The extra fine took 15 seconds to dry and the medium took 18. Scrubby for both gave no color variation because it's got none. It's a beautiful dark solid black all the way through. In the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Resistance tests are done to see how this ink could be expected to perform on the page, and more importantly, how hard it may be to clean from your pen. The smear is allowed to dry for 3 days before testing it. Looking at the highlighter, I would not use it in a note-taking situation. That's a lot of blowout and a chance to lose a lot of important information. Water's only lifting the top of the top layers, but leaving a lot in the paper. It's really bonded quite well to that, which you might expect having seen the chromatography. Pen flush is starting to break it down quite a bit more. You see a lot more of the white of the paper coming through. And the 1/3 bleach solution, while it's removing it, it's discoloring the paper kind of brown. Now, it only takes water to get this out of my pen. The next writing sample is done on life paper. No bleeding, no ghosting. We get no feather, spread, halo, sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the stub, while the stub and the medium are the same tone. The extra fine took 14 seconds to dry, while the medium took 19. The scrubby gave us no color variation, and there isn't any. And the smear test, there is no recovering if you smeared while you were writing. For the inks tested, the average viscosity was 2.5, and the realm of normal was 2.1 to 2.9. Pilot's Mixable Black has a viscosity of 1.73, so it's a wet ink. If you're interested in how the viscosity tests are done, then there's a link to that video down in the description. Now, let's take a look at Levenger paper. So the thing is, Levenger is typically really good with paper. This particular ink, let's just circle all of up there, has a lot of spots where the ink has come very deep into the page. It's causing quite a bit of ghosting. I don't see it actually stopping anybody from using it, but I do see a lot of spots getting very deep into the page. So whether you could use the back is up to you, but it's not ruining the next page. Now, the stub, feathered. The extra fine, looking at the K, feathered. Looking at the, feathered. The medium, looking at the K, feathered. The, feathered. Dog, feathered. No spread, no halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is lighter than the medium and the stub. The extra fine took 4 seconds to dry, while the medium took 6. Scrubby for both gave no color variation, which at least they didn't have, and the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Not a good showing for Levenger here. For the inks tested, the average dry time was 17 seconds, and the realm of normal was 13 to 21 seconds. Pilot's Mixable Black had an average dry time of 20 seconds, so it was normal. The last writing sample is done on Franklin-Christoph paper. It's the last couple of papers, the Levenger and this Franklin-Christoph, that are really showing some of the weakness of this ink as we get a ton of heavy bleed spots. We'll just circle all of that up there in a lot of the writing. For me, the amount of this bleeding into this paper would stop me from using the back of the page. Although it never touched the page underneath, so that's good. But Franklin-Christoph paper typically doesn't have that kind of a problem. Like, typically it doesn't feather, but this feathered in the stub. It feathered in the medium. It did not feather in the extra fine. It had no halo, there's no spread, halo, sheen, no shade. Just a ton of feathering in the medium and stub. The extra fine took 4 seconds to dry, while the medium took 5. Scrubby for both gave no color variation, and there wasn't any, and the smear test you could not recover if you smeared while you were writing. Instead of finding inks that look like Pilot's Mixable Black, I'd prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I decided to go with a red ink by Sailor, their Clown Teardrop Ruby. If you'd prefer a different complement color, then down in the description are links to those playlists. So what do I think of Pilot's Mixable Black? It's a great dark black with no shading. It holds up well to a gusher of a fude nib. Really a good black ink here. So what nib and pen are going to give the best writing experience with this ink? Well, it really does perfectly fine with anything, which makes its dealer's choice. But its aggressive performance on some of the papers made by fountain pen companies like the Levenger and the Franklin-Christoph makes me say this ink is best used in a Pilot parallel in playing that mixing game when you touch the two nibs together to see, the color changing in the writing. I think that's the best use here. I hope you got something out of this video, and in the next video, we're going to take a look at Diamine's Dark Forest.